Yeah. So I mean, I guess with that, then we can kind of delve into Hypernova and Moonlight and kind of get some of the specific takes. I know that there was some stuff we wanted to kind of come back to, not derail the conversation too far. So Kbot, Prochara, I'm not sure
we're taking this. We're derailing the train off the cliff.
Yeah. I'm not
See
sure whichever one of you wants to kind of.
I mean, I feel Hypernova should be first because we're talking about Super Jump still, and then we can transition to the tournament. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because you want to hype up your team after Monday night.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on Super Jump 5, it says. So Super Jump 5 is your run.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think so. It goes back to kind of what we were all talking about earlier. 10.0 released 2.5 weeks after, or before Super Jump happened, right? And about the time of 10.0 was about the time that I said that I put out the post that said that I was looking for maybe a team to try to coach. Henlo ended up DMing me like the day after I made that post, was like, hey, you want to run it back? Because I had coached him a little bit on Sonder as well. And I was like, yeah, well, I'd be more than happy to. I just thought you were sick of me. So I got involved with Hypernova. I watched some of their stuff. Actually, I think like one of the first scrims, actually, funnily enough, was like the day after 10.0, which was a scrim versus Moonlight that I was watching. That was one of the first scrims actually that I had watched from this team. And pretty quickly, like that second half of the week after 10.0, nothing was really clicking in terms of the new weapons. Like we were trying the Rusty Wiper. We were trying, all different sorts of things. We tried both Kraken Brush and Kraken Shot. Nothing was really working. And then I found out that DatKid was going to be on vacation the Sunday through the Tuesday before Super Jump, and that Lexi was going to be on vacation the Tuesday through the Friday before Super Jump. So really, we can't play as a team of 4 for the whole 5 days leading into Super Jump. So my brain immediately goes to, well, we have to get tournament ready this week because we don't get any practice next week. And with nothing else clicking, they were all kind of like, well, this is the comp that gets us the best results. And I said, all right, well, we're going to play that comp. And that comp is what you saw this weekend. It was Wiper, Brush, 96 or 52, depending on the map, and Snipe Rider. The reality, right, is that this is not a good comp. I think this is actually a terrible composition. Do not try to emulate this because this is really bad. But it is also the comp that Hypernova knew how to play the best, because we knew that we had to guide whatever we were doing around Synapse's special, whether he was playing 52 with the screen that allowed the Brush to run around and the Wiper to run around to try to get something going and buy some extra space for the team in general, or whether it was the Kraken, heavier engaged thing where we can run in off the back of that as well. So I think like overall, like I certainly, given by the fact that we hadn't scrimmed at all the week leading in, I was not expecting it to come through. And I had talked with Ferd a lot about that. We had gone back and forth a couple times leading into Super Jump. I figured that, all right, well, like this tournament is what it is. We'll just try our best. And we squeak out 4th in an SWS qualification. I do want to say like the major upset over Aura, Yoshell DC'd about 2.5 minutes into the ship shape game, where our timer was down to about 27 and their timer was at about 54, with both sides having a pretty significant penalty. So there was still more to play in that game. And in my head, I don't want to go around and be like, we're better than that Aura team, like whatever. Like, no, right? That I view that match as more of a tie, but obviously one team has to move forward in the bracket. So I don't want to claim that like we're significantly better than anybody just because we took that. But I do think like, because we had a very specific idea of what we came in and what we wanted to do, we were able to have that even ability to find success versus Aura, and even versus Milk Duds that pushed to a game 5, because they knew what they wanted to come in and play, or we knew what we wanted to come in and play. And I don't think they had fully developed what the idea was going to be for their pickups leading into the weekend. I'm surprised that Kyo was playing Wiper almost exclusively in the tournament, whereas the week before he was playing Slosher for the weekend tournaments, right, in 4v4 Sundays. And it was the same roster, right? There was virtually no difference. So I think like we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do with the event. Miraculously, right? Like we ended up clutching up and pulling out on top. And also when we lost, we were delayed long enough to not get put into the meat grinder of the opposite side of losers bracket. So we squeaked it out, and I think that's kind of most of the story.
Okay, before we go on, can I ask, was it put forward at any point that Synapse might play the new Dapple kit?
No.
Why?
Well, why? Because we're playing Stamp and Whale already half the time.
Yeah, so why would you want another whale?
Oh, I was coping.
Okay,
I put it in the doc maybe, but like
No, not a chance.
Not worth it.
We need a better special than that. And again, right, like the exact reason why I think the comp isn't good, look at the special comp. At best, we get Whale, Stamp, either Screen or Kraken, and Cooler. Now, Chara is going to argue with me all night about the fact that maybe 2 Stamps is marginally better. But like, really, are we going to split hairs between a Stamp versus a Whale? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't care as much. I think like I think it's better still, but like, you know, you guys made your decision there. And like
yeah, right.
I don't know. It's tough because Synapse is obviously the player who's like, oh, they can definitely play a better special for us at least, but also Kraken is very good with the style of play you guys have, just because the jumps it can give and how it sustains, and 96 wall supplements it. You know, kind of in the same way Wiper supplements Tent by being the mobile option while you have tanking. That's your tanking option while you have mobility. So I feel like it's also awkward to switch Synapse around.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough. I'm not sure what you do there.
Yeah. So like with Super Jump down, I think our next steps for us, like, I think Lexi wanted to sign up for, which we'll get into, but Lexi wanted to sign up for Freedom Dive because it looked at the time that it was just like a random +3 team and it was $150 on the line. And then I think after Hypernova signed up, then suddenly everyone else also decided to sign up. And like Thanos spawned out of the cloud, you know, to sign up for this random Monday night groups into Double Elim tournament. But now, like starting this week, we're going to start trying to experiment with, okay, how can we better special composition? Because I think we've probably hit our cap of how far this special comp or this comp in general can take us. Where is the next step is what we're going to try to figure out.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see that because, you know, you kind of mentioned Hypernova's success did come from other teams struggling to figure out how they want to run the new weapons, and that kind of caused them to make more mistakes and not be as solid. But so you have the other teams playing with less optimal comps, and you have, you know, less optimal comps, but like having better weapons versus Hypernova having weapons that can play together, but less optimal. And so I am curious to see what happens when you have both Hypernova on a more established comp using the new weapons and figuring out a better special comp, as I said, versus the other teams once they've also figured out how to use the 10.0 weapons. So I'm curious to see how Hypernova performs once everyone's had time to figure out all the 10.0 stuff, because it does seem promising. Again, as much as, you know, there is that like, well, we can't get too excited because, you know, there was reasons why we had such a good run, but it still shows promise for the future.
Yeah.
So
I also want to be clear that it's going to take us more than like a week to figure out what the next comp is going to be, right? The same way that changing the composition in the week leading up to Super Jump is not a good idea. But now the lucky part for us is we actually have time to figure out what we want. We wanted to play in the zone, but it sounds like we're probably not going to be able to with everyone being on, you know, trip for the holidays and such. But, you know, hopefully like whatever next tournament we enter is going to be our testing grounds more than it's going to be like, this is like, we think we're going to perform. So if you're a new Hypernova fan because of this tournament, first of all, welcome aboard. You didn't join that far after I did. And second of all, be aware that like you're probably not going to see another breakout performance for us for a little while because we're still going to try to figure things out. Because we need time. We need more than a week. We probably need like at least 2 weeks, if not more. And that's even hoping that the first comp we try works, right? If the first comp we try doesn't work, then it's back to the drawing board and it delays things another couple days. So we'll do our best, right? But just bear in mind that we'll need some time to adjust and adapt.
All right, and yeah, so with that Hypernova on that slow and steady grind, again, I love to see teams, just teams in general, just people sticking together as a consistent team with a name, with a coach, and willing to start finding those weapons that are going to work together. So I'm very excited for Hypernova's future. And speaking of established teams that have been there for a while, Moonlight, Chara at the helm as the coach. I'm sure you have a lot to ramble about with Moonlight, not only in Super Jump 5, maybe not as much as in Freedom Dive that also happened just this past Monday.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been like a lot more open to experimenting with it. My approach to it was more what is it? I think that we definitely could have been faster with how we narrowed it down, but I was like, okay, if our results drop for a little bit, I'm open to it. I just want us to figure out the new things because it was pretty clear that at the very like absolute minimum, we needed 2 weapons that applied to us. One, Basil flexing the new 96 for small zones maps or, you know, like Rainmaker, Cooler, stuff like that. And 2, Nolan is absolutely playing the new Splattershot Pro because it's Nolan. It's a pro player, so, you know, makes sense. So off the bat, we knew that we needed that. And then also pro is a very important thing for us because retake specials are also an area we're generally lacking in, right? We don't have a whole lot of them. We are very dependent on things like a 10 shield to make that happen. And we have a bubble to set up that's very important. So for us, it was like, okay, let's figure it out. 4v4 Sundays, we literally just debuted a random roller mini pro comp just to test stuff out. We got our 3-1 over Aura. We lost later to them in the bracket. But we definitely didn't narrow down well enough before Super Jump. And I think it showed. Versus Hypernova, we tend to change our strategy a bit because they're a tough team to counter for like playstyle wise. I think their mobility, they have a lot of object shred that's tough for us. And we, you know, tried to figure that out on the fly and it didn't work and we lost. And we fought Vanguard and, you know, I don't think there was any expectation they were going to play as well as they did. And we also weren't prepared and we lost. And we had a bad Super Jump run. And there's just, you know, not much else to say about that. And then Freedom Dive just showed up, like out of nowhere. It's like, I hear about this tournament from, I believe it was from Kyo. And I'm like, oh, this is in 3 hours. Do we want to play this tournament in 3 hours? And answer is yes. I don't even get here until the actual top 16 starts. And it starts off with Hypernova, where again, Shadow's like, oh, let me try Splattershot Pro. He has not played a game of Splattershot Pro in practice. I'm like, yes! Okay, I see the idea, but like, maybe we shouldn't. And they're like, no, it's gonna be fine. Turns out it's not fine. We lost that game. Then we switch on to Pro Splash, and again, it's like double support bad. We didn't learn our lesson, so we got another loss. It's like, okay, can we not do this anymore? Can we just run? And I don't remember if it was me who said it or someone else. I truly don't remember. I'm like, can we just play Mint Tense Pro? Like, we already know this is the best version of the new shit we have. Can we just stick that comp for the rest of this tournament? No more V-Roller, no Carbon, no Vacuum Tent, none. Just pick the normal thing. Outside of Tower, where we inevitably have to do Splash, because 10 on Tower is, like, kind of questionable, right?
Yeah.
But we were like, you know, who cares about that? Because after this, we won't have to play Tower for 2 months anyway. So, like, whatever. It doesn't matter. And we get in our losers bracket. We make a run. I have to find out where's the bracket. There it is. Let's see. We got our run. We beat some, like, you know, relatively normal teams. We get a DC, by the way, in our first losers round. We lost a game in our first losers round match because we disconnected on Humpback randomly. So that was awesome. We almost lost early, but we got the run. We got to Hypernova again. And I think it went better. Obviously, we won 2-0. The second game was just a full 100-0 tower push. But I do think that I'll attribute this to Pro, I think, really did help a lot with the comp not being as difficult to deal with. I think easier to find the Sharkers, Pro is able to punish the players a lot more. Pro does very good into very short range options, very mobile options, because its shots travel so fast and it does so much damage. So I think that was helpful. We get that win, we build some momentum, and we go into the FT win set. And the FT win set was one where I was like getting so nervous as a coach, because the last time we played FT win, I believe we played overall better throughout the set, but we had some really bad chokes. Min-speed zones was probably the main thing, where for like 4 minutes, we're holding zone. We're not panicking about the strikes. We're like playing so well for 4 minutes. They cap, we get nervous on our retake, we feed, we lose the game. And then we picked Brian zones for some reason. I don't know why we picked Brian zones, and of course the double strike does well there. And so I go into this, and then I see Crab Leg lost by 1 point because Shadow dies to a bomb. And then Barnacle clams, never before seen mistake to lose the game. Nolan swims on top of Shadow while in Kraken. So when we try to jump to Shadow, we hit Nolan's icon as the giant Kraken and jump into the recon in the middle of the stage, and with both footballs. It's like,
with 2 footballs?
no one's never lost a game that way. We invented a new way to lose.
I thought when I was at Riptide, I couldn't super jump because I rebound the D-pad on my controller by accident. I thought that was bad. But
I was like, from now on, I want us to know the D-pad of every single player so that we do not do this ever again. That was after the tournament.
Yeah,
I saw that, I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna be another 2-3, and it's gonna be for like really dumb stuff. Like in my head, I'm panicking. But I was like, I was just active as coach. I was like, okay, I know, like, I think the important thing to take though, as stupid as that way to lose the game was, what I tried to communicate across is, okay, that moment feels shit, but that's not the full reason why we lost. Like, obviously we shouldn't have done that play, but we took fights in street repeatedly. We gave them offense repeatedly, and that's the only reason they got a score in the first place. Let's put an emphasis on positioning. So every time before the game, I was putting emphasis on like where we're standing, how we push, what angles we need to watch. I was trying to get through as much of it as possible before each game. I forgot what game 4 even was versus FT1. It was Mako TC. We did good there. And then we had Scorch Rainmaker. And Scorch Rainmaker, we did not give up a single point. Rainmaker's stupid, I know. I don't think it should be in tournaments. Like, afterward, Basil vouched for Rainmaker not being in tournaments after we, like, 100-0'd in a 5-minute game, okay? So, like, bias aside, the mode's still dumb. But we played, like, a perfect Rainmaker game, pretty much. We were extremely patient and slow, which is how you play the mode. I'm sorry, it's true. We were stalling in the corner where it was needed. Basil repeatedly killed the Rainmaker bottom right with instant 2-taps. We waited for shields for pushes, and we didn't give in to every team picking a Kraken shot, because I don't think that's very real. I still think Kraken shot is like very overrated on Rainmaker, but we played it well, and we got the win over FT Win. I think our first win over FT Win in a very long time, and definitely our first win over that lineup. And all of a sudden, we had a lot of momentum.
I feel like the Kraken pick is scary right after you just did the clams move as well. Like, you're gonna look at that and go, no, don't pick Kraken, don't pick Kraken. We're done with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then we fought Jared's team, Jared, Volti, you, and what is it, Jordan? Yeah. So like half of the gray group we were just talking about, obviously very stacked players. We get our first win, and they adapt with the double Zuka stuff, which again is something we should be more used to now, because FT Win adapted in a similar way last time we lost to them. They picked double strike. Same thing, 2 instant fast use specials that shred our objects. And there were definitely a lot of mistakes that we could have cleaned up, but I think on the overall composition front, if we were comfortable enough to switch 96 sooner, I think we would have done better, because the 96 swap was way better for us. We got a game win, and then obviously we had a very close loss at the end, barely allowing them to score at the end of Umami Clan Blitz. And, you know, we still didn't win the tournament. We won a set off of them, so we got 3 set wins back to back, but at the end of the day, we still took the loss. The other factor of it could have been tower control, which, like, yeah, we got smoked in tower control, but at the end of the day, like, I know our tower control comp is just less optimal. Like, Nolan is playing shooters. He shouldn't also be playing S-Blast. It's too different. Shadow has been focusing tens, not splash, very different weapons. And like, at the end of the day, there was nothing that we could have changed to that wouldn't have been drastic there. It's just kind of unfortunate. And like, again, I know for the next 2 months, we're not dealing with tower. So like, you know what? Doesn't matter. Long term, sucks in the moment. Long term, probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And
I think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the nice things about this tournament overall is that, especially as a coach, I feel like this is a gold mine for information.
Oh,
so many game fives, there's upsets, there's close, like just barely like missing it, as you said, like a lot of 1-point games even. So there's so much to gain for Moonlight here. The fact getting second place in this is already huge on it by itself, but just the information to then pick up off of and have the players improve even more is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the main lesson to learn, and this was something that we already talked about after Super Jump, like we knew this ahead of time, we just didn't think we'd get to test it in tournament so soon, obviously, I was like, okay, we have sufficiently tested everything. What is our best comps? And like focusing that. And I want to talk a little bit about our Mint Pro tense comp. Why does that one work, right? I think it works because we don't overlap on too much paint. So when I talk about support and I talk about having too little fighting power, right? I don't want people to think of it as actually set roles. I like to look at weapons more on a sliding scale, right? So like Neo Splash is like a 10 in paints, a 10 in spamming specials, and like a 0 in fighting, right? Something like a Splattershot Pro is still mostly supportive, like it's at least 60% supportive. That's how it's optimally played. It's still not a fighter, but it's much closer to being a fighter, to the point where it's very easy if you pick another weapon that's too supportive, it doesn't work. What we have on our team is we have a lot of weapons that gear to fighting, but they're still able to paint pretty well. Mince can paint pretty well. It can bubble to help with zone cap. It has suction. It gets a decent amount of turf. Pro, as we talked about, leans a little more support. And even Tenebrella puts a good amount of paint on the floor. It still gets Azuka to retake. And so we don't have a true support, but we still have a lot of paint and a lot of fighting power spread out. The only downside is we just have to, come and be aware of who's responsible for painting when, since it's not, it doesn't fall on one person in particular. We have to make that call each time. But because of that, I feel like we have a lot of good fighting power. We have more entries than we do before. The missiles helps out a lot to take pressure off of Shadow. And then we still have stability and stalling with the, Mint sharking one shot, the bubble, the Tenebrella shield, all of that. But I think what I didn't understand back then is that we still needed the 96. When the comps got too object shred heavy and got too fight heavy, 96 is what shut a lot of that down. It was able to better sufficiently hold space on larger maps, and Kraken is much better at being able to ignore the shield shredding stuff like Shrikes and Zuka. It can just pop a Kraken and force those players to be less methodical with their specials, and that gives us better opportunities. So my lesson there is that we need both. We need to figure out when we should be picking each one and have a bit of adaptability ready, because having a set comp is good, but having no adaptions does leave you vulnerable, especially after this patch, because there's more counter pick options. So my focus for Moonlight is, okay, what fits into our identity without swapping around too much? So to me, each player should have 2 weapons, and that's it. And we'll try to go with that. Problems I see for the future are, what the hell does Shadow play alongside Tenebrella? What do we pick when we eventually have to play Tower again? Or if we fight a team that counters Tent, that also plays like a Tent, because everything else he plays is too supportive now with a Pro. Or do we just 96 all the time? I don't know. So there's still stuff to figure out. But I think we have a comp that now balances the fighting power, keeps new tools and entries, and most importantly, it still fits our style as a team at the end of the day. Our identity hasn't changed. We just have better options to use it against more counter strats.